Cool. I think we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is OP Radio. My name is Josh, and we have Marshall here today with us from Metal. We'll jump into a really high-level overview and dig into some deeper questions as to why Metal is looking to bring banking to blockchain in a lot more detail. Really quick disclaimer, as a whole, speakers are speaking in their personal capacities and not for their respective companies. To the extent that there are any, do not rely on any forward-looking statements made during this episode. Remember, OP is a governance token, not an investment, and nothing is in this episode or beyond should be construed as investment advice. So that being said, again, this is OP Radio. It's our weekly Twitter space with projects from across the ecosystem. We love highlighting teams that are joining the Superchain, and that is exactly why we have Marshall here today with us. So first of all, Marshall, thank you for joining. It's great to have you here. I've been a fan of working with you to get you guys across this finish line and have you part of the Superchain. I think let's just start out with the basics. Can you talk a little, just really high level, who you are and what you're doing before we start digging into the chain?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Josh. It's a pleasure, and really excited to join the Superchain and join you on Op Radio today and tell everyone about what we're doing. My name is Marshall Hayner, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Metallicus. And we are launching our Metal L2 today. But technically it's been launched for a few weeks, but coming out of the shadows today. A little bit of background about us and what we do is we were founded in 2016, so going on 8 years in the crypto space, which is kind of 80 in crypto years if you add a zero to it. We started our first app launch in 2018, the Metal Pay app, which you may be familiar with. If not, check it out. Go download it in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. It's live in the US in 48 out of 50 states. A fully licensed payments and trading app. We kind of cut our teeth as a company building compliant, licensed crypto systems in the US and abroad. And our vision is to bridge traditional finance and decentralized finance. So historically, the idea of banks interacting with crypto, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, was kind of a crazy idea. There were very few that were doing it. And now, flash forward to 2024, we're starting to see the beginning of adoption of fintechs and banks into crypto. When I started the company, I predicted that every major tech company and every major bank would be integrated into blockchain. And now we're seeing the beginning of that happening. And I think with the Superchain, you can really see how that can come together because there are a lot of great fintechs besides just Metallicus in it, right? You have Coinbase, you have Frax, you have WorldChain, with 20 million users that just joined. The future of crypto is all about interconnectivity, and Metallicus is playing a big role in making that happen.
So I think one of the things that you mentioned with the Metal Pay app is the fact that it's accessible, in the bulk of the US. So that means for the most part, if users go access it, they're not going to run into this massive wall that says that it's not accessible in my region. Fair to say?
Yeah, and that's a big problem in crypto, right? I mean, for us US users, and we make up about 20% of the crypto market, how often do you go to a website and says, this site isn't available for US users, right? And that happens a lot. But also in general, the ability to fiat ramp in and out has not been great in the US. It's gotten better over time thanks to companies like Coinbase and Metallicus and Kraken, Robinhood. But I think you can count them on your hand at this point, the amount that are left standing in the US. And when we started building Metal Pay, we cut our teeth on the consumer on the front lines, and we realized I think that every business in fintech and crypto ultimately will want this. They'll want some form of, white labeled their version of Coinbase or their version of their, WorldChain, WorldPay app, things like that. And I think that vision was right because when you look at like the Superchain, you look at other blockchain networks, they're mostly working to come together and connect. None that I've seen like the Superchain. And I think that's probably the most interesting one and, why we're here today. But ultimately, at Metallicus, we have a vision that that compliance can really empower the customer. In the past, it was viewed as a hurdle. In the future, your digital identity will give you a bank account, will give you, better credit scoring than existing credit systems. You think about the idea of your wallet and the cards in your wallet. All that stuff's going away, right? If we have Apple Pay and we have GPay, what's next? It's paying on the Superchain. It's paying with digital identity and cryptocurrency. And so, a big part of the Metal ecosystem, what we're building with Metal L2, is all that tooling, all that piping. I'm a big fan of Apple myself. A big fanboy. I've been, since the 90s when I kind of, really started to that first, colored iMac and the V1 iPod, all that. And I love the idea of a full vertical stack, right? I love that there's the Superchain that can connect between Base to Metal L2 to Frax to WorldChain, Lisk, and so forth. But I also love the idea that in the future, everything's going to be connected, and there won't be wait when it comes to finance. My co-founder and CTO, Glenn Marion, is in Belgium. When we first started the company, we realized, hey, wires are slow. We could send some Bitcoin, then we could send some stablecoin. And now today, we don't pay gas fees or very low gas fees. We're sending stablecoin. Glenn on the other side can get access to that relatively instantly. Very soon in the future, we envision a world in which you just deposit the stablecoin right into your bank, and the bank is part of that operation. And that's really kind of the broader vision for Metal L2.
Cool. And I think we'll talk about the banking and the way that you're approaching, integrating to that in the US specifically in a couple minutes. But I guess first a little bit more, one, can you do the audience a favor and pull apart Metal versus Metallicus just to make sure that the nomenclature is clear for those that are listening?
Sure. Yeah. So Metallicus is the broader company, and our vision is to build the world's most customer-centric digital asset banking network. That's kind of our slogan. And under the Metallicus umbrella, as a core developer of multiple blockchains and different pieces of blockchain software, we have different products. And so those products are built on top of blockchains public blockchains like Ethereum, like Bitcoin, but also networks like the Optimism Superchain and Metal L2. And then we've also built other networks like Metal Blockchain, XPR Network, and we're very much a multi-coin kind of vision in the sense that we feel that the future is not just Bitcoin or not just Ethereum, but is a network of multiple blockchains. And I think that's one of the things that attracted our company to the Superchain was this idea that we're building together, not apart. I've always felt in cryptocurrency that there's too much kind of rivalry and tribalism and infighting. And one of the really refreshing things about the Optimism community and the Superchain is that it's a different animal. We're all working together to try and make the interconnectivity of Web3 and blockchain become something that everyone can use. So again, to reiterate, this vision of a full vertical stack, I love that idea that I can show up to something and I don't have to use all these third-party tools. And for a long time in crypto, it has kind of been that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. But with the Metal L2, our vision is really that you can come in, you can access a lot of these things that if you tried to go and build it on your own, you're looking at 2+ years to get all your money transmission licensing. And that's just one country, the United States. Into the future, we want developers to come and build on our platform and have access to banking networks, have access to fiat ramps, but to really have that full vertical stack where you can have your white label version of Metal Pay. We're getting ready to launch that soon. We call it Metal Pay Connect. And that ability to have digital identity and KYC, just the process of building a compliance program and finding the KYC, KYB integration partners and setting all that stuff up, it's a really huge hurdle for a lot of crypto startups. And so we felt that by really productizing what we started in 2018 with Metal Pay, that everyone can have access to that. You can show up and skip 5 years of work of licensing, of product building, vendor integrations, and we can help you with the compliance and automate that for you. And that is such an important, critical thing, going into the future. If you look at some of the things that have happened in the post-FTX world, we kind of turned under the rock and saw all the problems that go wrong when you don't put compliance at the center of it. And that doesn't mean that you have to make a bad product or a product that has hurdles. What it means is that we can integrate into the traditional world, and we're making it easier and easier and easier. So into the future, you can have all this tooling, and you don't have to think about it too much. And 5 years in crypto, like I said, you can skip 50 years of crypto development time.
So I guess really quickly, Marshall, you continue to talk about the difficulty of compliance, and obviously it's something that in some ways we've tried to shy away from an industry, and we've also pulled entirely in the opposite direction. Please give us regulation, and it's tough to comply when you don't have very strict regulation. I guess can you talk through on the compliance side, when you're talking through making it easier and saving time for developers and builders, what specifically can you tell them about or even I guess just your pain points when it was to acquire the licensing? Can you just dig into that just for a minute?
Yeah, it was very difficult. Starting with just finding the first kind of fiat and banking partners in 2018. You go back a few years, 6 years, and there was a lot less interest from traditional finance in integrating cryptocurrency. So I frequently say that we had to work 10 times as hard as a normal fintech startup to achieve those partnerships and the licensing, because we were kind of looked at with a little bit of a side eye. And as we got momentum and we got steam, we built out our program and we showed operations. We were able to expand into different states and into different countries. And so, it was very difficult in the beginning. It still is very difficult today. But I would say that, as we build out this network, we've realized, this is a major hurdle. It's a major hurdle to interact with the traditional system. It's, what people have always wanted. If I flash back a decade ago, right back to, 2014, that was, if you go to Wayback Machine, you look on CoinDesk, what are people talking about? They're talking about the first prepaid debit card for Bitcoin or something like that. Now it's 2024, and I think it's great for the idea of, a developer to show up. You could build a DeFi crypto app and you could just plug that in. That was the dream 10 years ago, and now it can be essentially a part of the SaaS. And, at Metallicus, we really want to help our customers and clients in the crypto industry find that adoption, because we believe that blockchain is the best, most transparent public system of money the world has ever seen. But we do have to fight for it in our industry. And I think that's, we should be innovating responsibly, right? There have been times in the past where we've looked at certain systems and say, oh, let's degen this thing or whatever. It's great to have that mindset of breaking things and moving fast. But at the same time, for our end users, we want to protect their assets. We want to make sure we build robust, secure, and good systems. And that's really critical. And that's what Metallicus is doing. We're trying to foster that culture. And with the tools that we've built, we also want to integrate that traditional world interaction. So, from the Optimism Superchain, from Metal L2, from Optimism, from Base, just being able to move some stablecoin and instantly tap to pay that or accept that as a merchant. That's where we're going. That's the vision that we started in 2016 and we carry through to today.
Yeah, it's great. I think I'm sure on your side you guys talk through the compliance in much more detail that I think will give those that are coming into the space, especially as we're talking to those that are in traditional finance that are looking at blockchain. Obviously, it's going to be kind of a key factor for them to understand that there are teams like Metal that exist that have gone through a lot of licensing. So I'm sure there is probably a good amount of content that teams can find on Metallicus' website and the Metal L2 website that'll give them more context, which is great. So I think let's kind of start to shift gears a little bit. We've talked a little bit about the L2, but before even diving into that more, one thing that you mentioned before is connecting this DeFi and TradFi space overall. Again, and feel free to dig into more specifics here, but how do you actually see Metal at a high level kind of bridging that gap between TradFi and DeFi a little bit more? The licensing plays a very big role. Are there other kind of factors that Metal has built specifically that help that kind of bridge?
Yeah, so I think one of the big problems is when you're moving from fiat to stable or from fiat to cryptocurrency, whether it's stablecoin or it's a token or metal token or any digital assets, right? There's always some friction, right? So we're moving usually from our bank to the exchange or to MetalPay, to Coinbase, et cetera, Robinhood, what have you, then onto the blockchain and then onto the DEX or into some sort of DeFi DApp or something like that. Metallicus seeks to kind of bridge that connection. So in the future, we envision a world where you would just go into your checking account and withdraw some stablecoin right to the blockchain. Skip the whole process, skip the fees. And I think, shout out to Coinbase and Base as an innovator with USDC doing the free interaction. It's incredible. And they've got great, times. Metallicus and MetalPay, similar type thing. We've been more focused on the card payments lately and making it easy to use credit card and debit card onboarding. But in general, our vision is that interaction would be seamless, the movement between the bank and the blockchain. And so one of the things we're working on is a stablecoin called Metal Dollar, XMD. And another problem that we saw with this too was the fragmentation of stables. So there's a lot of different stables out there. And when you're trading a stable, generally you have to kind of pick a market. So either you're trading on USDC markets or USDT markets or something maybe a little more obscure, or maybe you're trading with Frax, or maybe you're trading with DAI. There's lots of different options, right? But where's that interactivity to kind of move fluidly one-to-one? For most people, it's on Curve, right? And that's kind of how we've been interacting in the Ethereum ecosystem with stables, is platforms like that. Our vision for Metal Dollar is a stablecoin basket. We started this vision in 2018, and then flash forward, I think it launched last year, 2023, or maybe it was late 2022. So it's been around for a little over a year. This ability for a stablecoin to kind of transmute, whether we're going from XMD to USDC to PayPal dollar to Paxos, USDP, whatever it might be, to be one-to-one. And then the next step, without any sort of fees, and then the next step is to be able to go fluidly from your bank. So could I take some USDC, move it to Paxos and deposit into Paxos, or just take any one of those stable coins and deposit it directly into, for example, a vibrant credit union or something like that. And that is really the vision that we're moving towards, that we want that direct integration with your bank, with your fintech provider. When I look at, for example, X, which is a great platform, formerly known as Twitter, Elon's trying to build a X payments and digital banking apps. And I predicted a few years back that all the popular technology companies like Apple, X, Google, for example, they will all have their little kind of micro banking platforms. I think Google's tried it like 2 or 3 times at this point. They'll be back with another one shortly, I'm sure. But X, for example, you're going to see that we should be able to deposit USDC and Frax and DAI and other things into X, into Bank of America, into whatever. And so we started with that vision, and we've started to build out those tools. Another part of that, so Metal Dollar is this basket where we can have multiple stable coins one-to-one interacting with zero transaction fee. But the next step is to add the ability to redeem at the bank and to have bank partners and fintech partners. So in the future, you would just take your XMD straight into the credit union, straight into the bank or fintech app, and boom, you're swiping it. And the same thing with MetalPay. And to go a step further, MetalPay is about to become open source with Metal L2, so it can be your app. And you can spin up and skip that 5+ years of licensing, headaches, hurdles, bank partners, and we can allow you to focus on the crypto, DeFi, and blockchain side. This space moves so fast. I've been making the joke, add a zero onto however many years you've been working in crypto, and that's what it feels like in real life. But it really does feel like that for those of us that work in this space. And you need to focus on the crypto side. If you get distracted, it's like surfing, and being way out past the waves. You got to get back close to where you can actually catch a wave. Otherwise, you're going to get swept out by the undertow.
Yeah, and we'll say in that scenario that you're only riding the wave smoothly, that no one gets wrecked.
No crashing, right?
No crashing. Yeah, so those are great points. I think in terms of making it easy to access the dollar or any currency for that matter, and having it kind of the front end and not kind of there's a lot of language around abstraction, but basically the idea of like as a user, especially for any retail user or any kind of one who's interacting with Metal for the first time, the last thing that they're going to want to be doing is picking between which of the currencies that they're using and making it much more seamless. Of like, okay, I'm just swiping my card, right? I'm running to the grocery store, I just want to pay that. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that works. Can you talk a little bit more? Because I feel like Metal's probably made more leaps and bounds here than you gave yourself credit for in terms of what it actually means for Metal to be working with those banks. So I'm an app that's been enough for the first time, and I want to have payment rails that are built on chain, but I want it to be very Web2 experience, and I need to have the trust that I can actually interact with the banks. Can you talk a little bit more in terms of what those partnerships have looked like for you guys? And you can beat your chest a bit here, like you give yourself credit. I think you guys have formed some really good banking partnerships. So talk through that a little bit more if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of 2 sides to it. One is the MetalPay side, which we're productizing with MetalPay Connect. If you check out my Twitter, you can see a little sneak preview video I just put out last night. But basically, that's if you think about kind of some of the widgets of the past, like the MoonPay or the what have you, Simplex, something like that, that's like built into the browser. That's the first step. So we have that capability to kind of plug that in. But going a step further, soon you'll be able to take those modules and white label them and work with our partners, where you could have kind of like a white labeled version of MetalPay, and that's very powerful. But to go even a step further, one of the things that we discovered were there are multiple banks, credit unions, financial institutions that want to do stuff on a private ledger, and they want that private ledger to connect to the public ledger. And that can be the Optimism Superchain, that can be Ethereum or other blockchains. As we started to build out that program, we created what's known as the Metal Blockchain Banking Innovation Program. And the Metal blockchain, separate from the Superchain, is a protocol built on based on Snowman. And the idea is that blockchains can similar to kind of the Superchain. They can launch their own private ledger. It's a little different. And we've had multiple banks and credit unions signing up for our blockchain banking innovation program. We've been really excited because very soon those banks will have interaction to the public mainnet. And that's where I really see Metal L2 coming in, that connects the broader Superchain and Ethereum ecosystem, Optimism ecosystem. And that's really important to have that capability that you could do that. So in the future, we're starting with essentially the white label capabilities of MetalPay, that modularization, but then also when it comes to going a step further, and maybe you want to interact directly with the bank partner on their own private ledger, that's the next step. So we're trying to connect all these pieces, but everything from the simplest, hey, I just want a web widget, to I'm ready to build my own app, to I want to talk directly to these banks. And historically in the past, that was a very difficult thing. If you try to go and work with a bank, you'd be lucky after a year to maybe get a pilot. And we're trying to get you running full speed right off the bat. And in crypto, has been something that has been very difficult, and especially after, I would say, FTX, when that exploded, that really put a crater in kind of the view of the crypto ecosystem. But what came out of that was a renewed vision of compliance is really important. Crypto is in fact money. Digital identity should be safeguarded, and we should have easier, better systems to these fiat ramps. And if crypto is better than traditional money, let's prove it. And I see it in this, what I guess, crypto world calls a bull run. We went through that phase, where we were depressed. We were in the bear winter. Why? Because people were not embracing compliance. Not that we want to go over the top and make things difficult, but we needed to treat crypto as money. And the moment we started to do that, and I think that was the moment we started to do that, everything changed. The next kind of wave of crypto, as I call it, started. And that came with the excitement, but also came with, for example, the Bitcoin ETFs, the BlackRock Biddle Fund. This is the next generation of crypto. And the compliance doesn't have to be a scary thing. Think about it as a benefit to the users, to give them access to fiat, to give them access to banking. Our job is to make it easy and simple and remove the complexity and protect the users and create an amazing customer experience. Because I think that's really what's held us back in the crypto world. The lack of real world adoption, which is now happening, and the safety and security and UX, user experience. And that's something that we're working to really help startups that come onto the Superchain, that come onto Metal L2, to just come out the gate with that. Because it does take years. And I think that, I've heard someone say it before, you work in technology, you're in for a lot of pain because things are moving so fast and it's different than so many other industries. You're in for a lot of pain because if you don't adapt, you're going to run into a wall. But if you're working in crypto, it's like technology on steroids. So you really have to be efficient and you have to focus. And if you go down the road of, trying to do all these different things, you might die. So, we recognize that we want to build those tools. We want to make it easy. We want you to be able to plug in. And, I started in crypto as a hobbyist over a decade ago, discovered it in late 2009 when I used to live in Massachusetts and Boston, moved to California a few years later and just got bit by the bug. But those early years, people were going to meetups, at the Westfield Mall in San Francisco to trade Bitcoin in person. There was no Coinbase. There was no, shout out to Eric Voorhees with BitInstant. He was like one of the first pioneer in the crypto space, but there was not a lot of stuff going on. And now it's 2024 and we want you to be able to plug in. Right. And we want you to be able to have that good experience, and we want to help you with your compliance. We want to help you with your reg tech and your fintech. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. In the future, we want your clients to be able to recover private keys, to use account abstraction without having to open up, third-party wallets in the browser. But now you can use your pass keys, and you can sign with your Face ID. And we were right in this vision because I see other industry leaders kind of following on, like Coinbase, and I see Binance integrating web authentication into the Coinbase wallet and Binance Trust wallet. And we were kind of one of those early adopters with the WebAuth wallet, webauth.com. We saw that view for web authentication. So, I love that Apple kind of stickiness and simplicity, and we want to bring that to your apps with the Metal L2 and the Superchain.
That's super helpful. I think it's interesting hearing you talk about the private ledgers that the banks are using and having access to kind of the public roads and the public streets of chains like the Superchain. It does, the analogy that went into my head is basically like a garage, that you're parking the car and which is where the banks go, and then you have the roads and the streets and the highways that are the interconnected kind of layers of the public space of the Superchain. Okay, so I guess let's shift gears in the last couple of minutes that we have. I'm definitely curious, we've talked a little bit more about Metal and the emphasis on compliance, the emphasis on accessing multiple versions of stablecoins, and a little bit in regulation. I think a lot of that, again, would be great. Like I'm sure you guys put front and center on your website for teams and developers and those that are not in the space that are trying to learn about the space for them to access. Can we talk a little bit more about when you guys decided to launch Metal and maybe first what was the most important thing when you guys were considering building a layer 2 to start with?
Yeah, we back in 2017 when we started with the MetalPay app, it started with this vision of something called POP, or proof of process payment. And the idea was you would make a payment with the app with fiat, and then you would get a little bit of cryptocurrency like a cashback, like MTL. And we did that for about 3 years, from 2018 to 2021. People loved it. It was a great experience. And when we started to build it out, we wanted to do all that stuff on chain initially. But in 2018, I think that was right when CryptoKitties launched. That was like the first time we saw the blockchain get congested. We realized, hey, we need something that's fast and feeless and free. And we ended up building a few years later something called XPR Network, which is still alive today. It's a part of the Antelope network of chains, and it's relatively feeless and free. It's a great experience. But one of the things that we recognized was it was kind of walled off from the greater Ethereum ecosystem. And while it's a great experience, we recognized as we started to build Metal Blockchain after XPR. About a year later, we started development on that, and it launched in 2022. As that started really going, we found huge interest from regional banks, credit unions, small, mid-level sized banks into integrating this, because when you look at like JP Morgan, Onyx, where's the version for the 4,000 other banks, right? That connects them, sort of like a super chain of banking, if you will. And so as we start to build that, that's great because it connects all of these banks with faster payments and blockchain and the reg tech that's needed to do that. But how do we connect to the greater crypto ecosystem? And Ethereum is the killer, right? I've heard many so-called Ethereum killers, coming, but Ethereum is the one, right? I'm a longtime crypto guy myself. I don't see that changing, just the same way I don't see Bitcoin not being number one anytime soon. Maybe someday Ethereum flips it or something, but I'm definitely an Ethereum bull and I'm an Optimism bull and Superchain guy. And it's a funny story because when I started MetalPay, Jen, the founder of Optimism, and I go way back, I was showing her the paper and I was asking for some help on it. And it's really interesting because so many years later, I saw Optimism forming and I thought, hey, that's a really great it's a really great idea. It's a great vision. And as it started to come together and I saw Base and others joining, I think it was around the time that Coinbase joined, I said, we need to be part of this. We need to start thinking about this. Because it's exactly aligned with my vision, Metallicus vision of connecting. And I see so many crypto communities fighting, oh, mine's better than yours and whatever. But where are the people really coming together and building together as teams? We have so many enemies in the crypto space from, I guess you could say, like Senator Warren, for example. She hates cryptocurrency. She doesn't want to see it exist. Then you have people like Emmer who really want to, and McHenry who want to push, and Lummis, they want to push the bar for crypto. But we have enough people that don't want to see it succeed. We need to stick together in our industry. And from a technology perspective, we need to be building the tools and making it simpler for banks and technology companies to come in, because when crypto really takes off, it transforms money. We have more transparency, we have faster payments, we have global payment networks, and we really can democratize finance. And furthermore, there are so many people that were left out of the system. That couldn't access banking networks, or fees are too high, or even just, in our own crypto world, what if you want a loan and you call the bank and they say, sorry, you're involved with crypto, I can't give you a loan. What about all the DeFi platforms and banks that want to be a part of this but can't? And so, our vision was really to pull all of that stuff together. And when we saw Coinbase joining the Superchain, we felt like this is, I already was a huge fan of Jin and Optimism, but I could see that was really, for us, was this is definitely happening. We want to be a part of that. And as we were preparing to do it, we just saw more and more, people coming in and getting excited. And another thing I want to say is when I hear the Optimism and Superchain influencers, whether they're from Base or whether they're from Optimism or Metal or wherever they're from, they're saying a similar message, which is we're working together. We're going to build this together. We're going to do this together. And it's really kind of something that should reverberate through the crypto sphere for all crypto teams. We got to work together. We have to build these things together because there are enough people and powerful entities trying to tear us down. And I think in the banking world, it's not too different that smaller banks are getting swallowed by larger banks. They want to be part of the technology too. So a big part of that is really that interconnectivity, the reg tech, the compliance, responsible innovation, and working together. And I just love the vibe. Whenever I see a vibe in crypto that's friendly and cool, like kind of like Jin's personality and yours, I want to be a part of it. And that's what I saw here.
Yeah, so. That's good. So it sounds like what drove Metal towards Superchain and like the OP stack was, the breadth of the inclusivity that we're looking for, which is good. I mean, we didn't talk about the stack too much, which I think is actually one of the strongest suits of Optimism in the Superchain. But I also have to say, like, the culture is very approachable and welcoming, and that's definitely the ethos that we want. And that's the only way you can really build towards an open source community in the future, right? You can't have open source exclusivity. It's kind of a conundrum to have too. So I think what you're saying really reflects a lot of what is being built, throughout the entire Optimism collective.
And I would also add to that I think that's the roadmap and vision for Superchain is the tightest aligned with Ethereum. And there's lots of stuff out there. There's Arbitrum, there's lots of stuff out there, but the alignment in the Superchain, this vision, it's very progressive, and it's one of the tightest aligned with Ethereum Foundation and consensus in that core vision. And it's working. It's really working, right? There are a lot of times in crypto when you see somebody trying to shove a square peg in a round hole, many times. And when I look at Optimism, I see, all the right pegs going into all the right holes simultaneously. It's beautiful.
Well, I wish it was that seamless. I think, it's, as you mentioned before, there's definitely a lot of moving parts at the same time, but that's great to hear. So I guess in the last few minutes that we have, really quick, what's next for Metal? Can you drop some alpha for those that are listening? And then we'll ask like one or two quick follow-ups after that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are working on kind of our big unveiling today is kind of like one of my first days really getting out there and talking about it. So thanks again for having me on the show. What's coming up next for us? We have the MetalPay Connect, which I kind of briefly mentioned. I teased on Twitter. This is going to be our fiat on-ramp widget and soon our open source version of MetalPay, where you'll be able to plug that in. Expect some proposals coming up for MetalDAO grants. On top of that, there is, and this is not just MetalL2, this is all the Superchain, but obviously you have the Optimism Retro PGF funding round 4 coming up on top of the MetalDAO. So there's going to be tons of incentives to come in, build on the MetalL2, build on the Superchain. Yeah, and a lot of exciting stuff. Simultaneously on the Metal blockchain side, we're announcing more banking partners, and we're going to be connecting these two worlds, Metal blockchain and MetalL2. So the dream of working together with banks that may have seemed so far away a few years ago is going to be coming very soon to adapt near you. Follow us on Metal_L2 on Twitter. We are Metallicus and also at Marshall Hayner. You can kind of see the stuff we're working on. And yeah, a lot of cool software tools that are coming out. Also, WebAuth, our non-custodial wallet, is going to be launching very soon with Ethereum, MetalL2, Optimism, Superchain will support Base and other Optimism, Superchain, L2 networks. And we're working to bring that to the web authentication through account abstraction. So our goal is to also have that seamless in-browser experience with the fiat, with the DID, but expect a new wallet launch build coming very shortly as well.
Oh, that's exciting. Cool. Well, I think, Marshall, you've tackled a bunch of the questions that I have listed throughout this. So for those that are listening, definitely recommend going back. A lot of insight here from Marshall along the way that covered the whole range of topics that we were trying to get to. It sounds like the best way is for people to get in touch via Twitter at the handle that you just mentioned. Is that fair to say, Marshall?
Yeah, that's correct. And metal-l2.com, you can go there and get all of our blog posts, news. You can add the network and try it out. We're live on mainnet, so we kind of we like to ship things real fast around here at Metallicus and be messy and break things in the early days. But yeah, go to metal-l2 and metallicus.com to find out more about our company.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And yeah, we're thrilled to have you guys as part of the Superchain. Really appreciate you coming on so early in the morning for this conversation, Marshall. Excited to see what comes, in the next couple of quarters and definitely the years to come as we start to bring, compliant banking and regulation closer to the Superchain via Metal. And so thank you for the time, and we'll see everyone at the next W Radio.
Thanks for having me on, Josh. Thank you, everyone. Cheers.